Welcome to Changemakers, a smart school podcast exploring how to live a successful and happy life. I am your host, Katlego Motlogelo. On every episode, I talk to great thinkers and doers from different walks of life who are at the forefront of positively impacting society. Our conversations focus on their specific journeys to achieving their goals. We talk mindsets, books, advice, and tools they use to keep them motivated. All the key ingredients you need for a happy and fulfilling life. Let's get it. Without further ado, man, thanks for making time to come through, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Yeah,
So look, man, I'm calling you. I'm in South Africa. You in the US? Are you in the state of? I'm not too well quite versed. You're in Minnesota. Yeah, so I appreciate you making time. To come onto the platform and just shed some light of your experiences and the things that you're doing currently. So yeah, I appreciate it, man. So Mr. Ndlovu, without further ado, man. So usually how I start these conversations, is I want to know, who Sylvester Ndlovu is. Where were you born and raised? Where did you go to school? Things like that. You are in Minnesota now, but were you always in Minnesota? So do you mind just taking us through that?
it's kind of refreshing to talk to somebody that actually knows how to say my last name, but proper. But yeah, like you said, yeah. So I was born in Harare, Zimbabwe. So you know, I was raised by a single mother. So is my sister and I. So raised by a single mother. My mother ended up actually passing away when I was 12. Um, So that means I had to leave like in an orphanage. So you guys have, I think, in South Africa, SOS Children's Villages. Yeah, because you do. I have some friends from there. So I actually ended up living in SOS Children's Villages, since the age of 12. So my sister and I were in there. So yeah, it gets. I guess yeah, it's like yeah, we got dark pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
this is one of the things it like when I was younger, or even just I was not. This is part of the things I was not willing to share with a lot of people. But as I get older, I feel like if my story can inspire other people, I should be willing to share exactly who I am and where I came from. But the truth, though, is when I was younger, I was not willing to share part of that story because I didn't want people to give me opportunities because they felt sorry for me. I didn't want like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna pit you into like this job, or I'm gonna pit you into this opportunity. So I think that's definitely why I was not doing that earlier. But now it's like, well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other people that came, or even worse situations than I did, and they made it. So yeah, so I, at the age of 12, lived in SOS Children's Villages. And then through that, I got a scholarship to go to an international high school in Ghana. So I ended up living in Ghana for 6 years. I would come back to Zim pretty much just for the summer break. So I spent like 2 months in Zimbabwe, but for the most part, for 6 years, I lived in
Yeah.
Ghana. Then after Ghana, again through SOS Children's Villages, got a scholarship to go study here in the U.S. So in Minnesota. So I've pretty much been in Minnesota since I came here for college. So I did my undergrad in economics and business. I also got my MBA. Yeah, and then after that, worked in healthcare, finance for about 10 years.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that's I guess yeah, that's a summarized version of my
Yeah,
story,
man, that's
really.
I didn't know that. So I want to
Yeah,
zoom a bit in on the earlier days. So
yeah,
so you live in an
yeah,
orphanage. You've lost your parents. You're growing up with your sister in that orphanage.
yeah.
How was that experience for you, and what do you think shaped you? Because I would think that
Mhm.
the scholarships are limited, right? So not everyone would get it.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So
Oh
what do
yeah.
you think
Mhm.
shaped you during those early years and those early days while you were going to school and open up those opportunities for you to go to a international high school in Ghana and then get a scholarship to go
Mhm.
to America and do your undergrad there? Like,
Yeah.
could you just take us through that?
Yeah. I mean, at the time, yeah, that's yeah. At the time, you don't think about it because I was only 12 years old. But I think the benefit that I got, that maybe other kids that I was growing up with. Because I mean, some of these orphanages, the kids that get in there, they come from different ages. Some have been in there since orphan, since they were like infants, right? So some have been in there since they were 3 or 4. I had at least the privilege to be in there when I was 12 years old, which I feel like, at least you're a little bit grown. You've seen the outside, you've seen what it is like, in life. So I think that really gave me like the determination and drive to make it out. To say, yeah, this tragic thing might have happened to me, but it's not rock bottom. I think there's still a way up. And yeah, I think that's what really it gave me the focus, and it gave me even though my mom had passed, I still had, obviously, my great grandmother was still there, my aunts were still around, so I still had like some family that, as opposed to other kids, and a lot of, some of them didn't have anybody outside that they knew. So I think that gives me, yeah, my determination and drive really came from those early years and that
Yeah,
experience.
okay, that's cool. I hear you. So I wanna, drill a bit in deeper in terms of, how was it growing up,
Mhm.
in the orphanage, so after school, what would you do?
Mhm.
Were there certain things, like habits that you formed,
Yeah.
this is how you do your schoolwork, this is how you prepared for
Hmm.
your exams,
Yeah.
and then you spoke about your family a
Mhm.
bit there, you know,
Yeah.
most of us would have, role models or people that we look up to, who sort of encourage us in
Yeah.
times of distress and challenges, etc. So did you have anyone maybe within the,
Yeah.
the orphanage or even outside, like you say about your family? So just respond to that first question about what
Yeah.
your habits were, and
Yeah.
how did you live in an orphanage? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. So again, this is not going to be a typical experience for anybody that, grew up in that setting, because again, for the most part, I was in there for maybe about a year and a half before I moved on to Ghana. But my typical day will usually involve, like, going to school. During break time, everybody plays soccer. So I was already playing. So I started playing soccer at the age of like maybe 5 or 4. But yeah, so every break time we're playing soccer. Right after school, we're playing soccer. So I actually was in the soccer team. So that kept me again away from, just wasting my time, because it's like it was either school, and then I'm in a soccer team, we're practicing. After that, I'm tired, I go back home. So the nice thing about SOS, it's a family based, they call them family based orphanages, right? So what it is like they actually put you in a family. So I was in a house with other 8 kids, and we're like one family, and there's other houses that, again, yep. So it's like you're almost, they call them SO students villages, because you are in this compound or complex with so many other houses and different families. So yeah, so after that, you come home, you have to do the dishes, you have to do your laundry and all that stuff, just like, what you do in a regular household. It's just, yeah, growing up with your siblings, really. As far as people that impacted me, I don't really have. I mean, the thing with me, I'm not too big on role models, but I believe in people having an impact in your life at certain points, or giving you opportunities. Because the thing with role models, like as we go through life, it's like life is like a journey, and everybody sort of has a destination, right? So if I have a role model, that person's journey and destination might require them to just walk and get there, right? But my journey and destination might actually require me to get on a train, fly, and go somewhere else. So for me to say, yeah, this person is my role model, and when they have a different journey and destination, it doesn't really work. But with that said, though, I have had a lot of people that have had a significant impact in my life, even from those early days. I think like my PE or gym teacher, I have to always switch the terms, like so sometimes I say PE here in the US, and nobody who knows what a
Yeah,
PE is, but I have
physical
to say gym
education.
teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I think my gym teacher or my PE teacher, definitely in those early days had a significant impact in me, because I was so involved in so many different sports. I was running, I was doing soccer, I did basketball. So that just it took away from even just, like after my mom died, right? It took away. I had so many emotions, but I didn't really have the time to process all those things that that had happened to me, because I was like focused on only just the school or the sports I was doing. I was just living in the moment. So I think that took away the time for me to actually get in trouble, right? Hanging out with the bad kids and getting in trouble because I was in sports, every time I was doing something. Um, and then I think obviously my mom had a great impact. Even, I lived with her for 12 years, but definitely the way I am as a person is I feel like that's part of like my mom's personality. My great grandmother was definitely the pillar of our family. So she definitely had an impact in me, like the way I think my generosity really comes from my great grandmother and my mom, definitely, but my great grandmother. So yeah, that's in my early day. Those are the people that have definitely impacted my life. And then obviously my aunt, who I'm actually not uh, blood related to, but this was my mom's friend that ended up taking me and my sister in. So every time we come back from Ghana, or every time we are in SOS Children's Villages and it's a holiday and we need to go somewhere, then we'll go and spend some time with my aunt. And that's also where I saw, okay, what a normal family could look like, or successful people could look like. So then I'm like, well, yeah, I gotta aspire to be, one of those successful people. So my aunt I'm talking about is actually Tendai's mom. So yeah, that's Tendai's mom's. Yeah. So that's yeah. So yeah. So I think in those early age, those are the people that have definitely changed my life, and impacted even the person that I am right now. Is all through that. Even if we go like fast forward to now, where I have Rua Freequare. What a lot of people don't know is like the logo, the Rua Freequare logo is actually like a tribute to my mom and African women. So like all the African mothers out there, because they literally put us on our backs. What I mean, they put us on their backs. So if you look at the logo, it's like is this mother with a child in the back, because that so that's a tribute to my mother and all the women and that have played a role in my life, and that continue to play a role in everybody's life, really. So
Cool. That's super. So I think you've opened up now this conversation about your
yeah,
business. So maybe let's skip in
yeah,
and talk about it. So
yeah,
you go to Ghana high school, then you get a scholarship. You go into
yeah,
college to study. You said business studies and economics. Um,
yep. So yep,
so
I did economics and
so
business.
now, I know you also did an MBA, what, early 2000 2007,
Hmm.
between 2007 and 2010. So when does
Yep,
this
yep.
idea of, okay, let me start an African inspired, brand, where does it begin?
Mhm. I think it really started really in I think probably in high school, right? In high school, it's like everybody is into brands. Like, man, I have to wear the latest Nikes. I have to wear the latest Adidas. I have to wear the latest Gucci, and it's all about competition. Well, the one thing I didn't tell you about the experience too in high school is because um, it's an international high school. So all the international kids were actually coming from the SOS Children's Villages. So most of them were just orphans, just like me.
Uh,
But then the local kids were Ghanaians. So they were the rich elite Ghanaians in that school. So you have a mix of, oh, here's orphan kids,
sure.
and here is like, the richest Ghanaian kids, brightest Ghanaian kids in the same school. So, with that is like everybody's competing in terms of like, what to wear and the brands and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But it just got to a point where I felt like the brands that I was wearing did not represent who I am, don't mean anything to me. So I got to this, I think probably by the time I was in, I did IB International Baccalaureate. So when I was in like IB1, IB2, there was a local Zimbabwean brand called Faithwear.
Okay.
So pretty much every time I went to Zim, all I would do is just buy Faithwear. because I was like, this is a Zimbabwean
Yeah,
brand. It definitely means something to me. I'm gonna rock the Zimbabwean brand. Forget all the other, Adidas, Nikes. This is the brand I'm gonna wear. So I think that's really where sort of like the idea came into, like, um, in my head, is like, yeah, I mean, all of a sudden I want to be able to wear something that represents
sure.
me. And then fast forward to college. Once I was studying my MBA, obviously it's all about, what can you do? Do you want to work for the rest of your life? Do you want to do something after that? So obviously, yeah, I was like, I had the idea, I wanted to create something. But the thing is, when you go into that space, the African fashion space or the fashion space, there's already amazing designers. Even in South Africa, there's amazing
Yeah,
designers that do
yeah,
amazing work. Things end up on the red carpets and all that stuff. But what I did realize was, like, what was going to differentiate me or my brand was functional wear, right? A lot of people, like, African fashion is reserved for like church,
yeah.
weddings, and funerals. I call those the three
Sure.
events: church, weddings, and funerals. That's what people reserve their fashion, I mean, their African clothing for. So I wanted to create something that's everyday functional, so like that's kind of how I started doing fitness and athleisure. So I had that idea when I was back in school, but then really launched it when I was working, because obviously I needed the
Yeah,
money from my day job, to fund the business. But yeah, so the fitness and athleisure was really born from finding the pain point and a demand
yeah.
for having to wear African clothing any day, as opposed to just reserving it for those events.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually wearing a South African brand here. This is a Tepo bucket hat. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that you and
yeah,
I are sort of on the same
yeah.
plane, you know?
That's the way to.
We need to
Yeah,
wear
no,
what represents us and what
that's
we
the way to go.
understand. No, I feel,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, because what people don't realize is, when you work out, right? It's all about, you're literally advertising who you are,
yeah,
or you are like a walking brand. So if I walk out of my house and I'm wearing all these other brands, I'm wearing
Gucci,
Gucci and all that
Louis
stuff.
V.
That's so I am literally advertising. I am advertising for Gucci, and I'm saying, yeah, this is who I am. I am, I rock Gucci. That's the person that I am. But so that's why I'm trying to get people to, like, wear something that
Yeah,
represents you, has a meaning, has an intrinsic value, and obviously a brand that has a story. So whether you're wearing Rua Freakware, or you're wearing a local South African brand, you're wearing a local Zim brand,
yeah.
that's great. Let's
That's
get away from these Eurocentric standards of beauty and
I like
fashion.
that, man. I like that. I wanna dig deeper, but on that. So now you've started this brand, you are freak wear, and you're talking about representation and a
Yeah.
story behind it. You know, you spoke about the logo, but when you wear it and when I purchase, you know, a product, what do you want? What's the story that you want me to believe? You know, when I'm putting this on.
Mhm.
You know, I try to look for it, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite clear yet. So, do you mind just taking us into
It's
your
not there.
confidence on what's the thinking
Yeah,
behind the
yeah.
brand?
Yeah, so the behind the brand is, we're trying to incorporate as many African prints
Yeah,
as possible, right? So, if you're from South Africa, we want to be able to have something that's South African inspired. Whether, so like right now we have
yeah,
some
the Zulu.
Zulu
Yeah,
bead print. Yeah, so it's like inspired by the beadwork that people do in South Africa, right? So a lot of people, when they see that print, they know exactly what it is. They recognize it. So let's say you're from Ethiopia, you see, oh, we have an Ethiopian inspired print. You see it, you can identify with it, and it's something that either brings a nostalgic feeling to, because you grew up with it. If if you're from Ghana, so we use a lot of kente. So if you're from Ghana, you're familiar with kente. That's something that obviously represents who you are. That's something that's from your past or from your country. You want to be able to wear something like that you're proud of. Especially here with in the US, it's there's a lack of diversity in terms of where I live here in
Yeah.
Minnesota. And that what I mean by that is there's a lot of lack of diversity in terms of what's on the shelf spaces, right? So what we're trying to do is put our brand out there, so it's one of the brands that you can choose from, because again, it represents who you are, and you can pick from our brand when you go shopping. So I don't know if you know, but we have, so Rua Freeway is actually in we. So there's a store. I mean, not a
You
store,
are
a
in the
mall
Mall
called
of
Mall of
America. Yeah,
America
yeah,
here in
yeah,
Minnesota. And yeah, and it is the biggest. It is the biggest mall in the
yeah,
U.S. And that's where we are. We as of June last year, we have a store in there, because it's part of that. It's part of trying to change that narrative to say you we can be in the big spaces, so you can see us and you can feel
yeah.
represented, because all of a sudden you come, you see our store, you get excited because you're like, oh man, that's an African brand. Oh look, oh that's a South African
Print. Yeah,
print. Oh, that's a Ghanaian print, because I can see it. You know that's something that people have never had to see in the last few, I mean, until our store is there. There hasn't been any other store in that
yeah.
space, that offered something like
Man,
that.
that's huge,
So
man. Congratulations. That's huge, bro. The biggest mall in the United States,
yeah,
Hoover
yeah,
Freeway, straight from
yeah, yeah,
Zimbabwe, Mr. Ndlovu.
yeah.
Man,
No,
that's
that's
proper,
yeah,
man. That's proper.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Thank you, thank you.
I want to get a bit into, because I know that you, when I was doing a bit of research, that there are other things that you're trying to integrate
Yeah.
as part of your brand. So beyond
Hmm.
fitness, clothing, and leisure wear, what else are you
Yeah.
looking into? What other spaces do you want to expand into?
Yeah, so I mean, as you're building a brand, it's all about building a community as well, right? So really, I'm trying to build a community here, with the diaspora, or even just with the local, with the local people, because our brand is all about celebrating the African culture and history through fashion, right? With that said, it's not. We're not designing things for just Africans, or we're not designing things for just African Americans. We're actually designing things for everybody that wants to celebrate, and appreciate African, history and the culture. So we're trying to build a community around that. So one of the things that we do in our Mall of America space is we do free yoga and dance
Yeah,
classes. The reason behind that is we want to bring people together, right? We want to bring people together in that space where it's a safe space. People can come in, interact with people that they've never usually would have had to interact with, or you might even meet you. Maybe you are new to town, or you're just visiting Minnesota. All of a sudden, you're meeting all these people in our space. You're now, you might be from Congo. All of a sudden, oh, you're meeting somebody else from Zambia, because you came to our store. So that's one thing we're trying to do, is like really build that community here. Another thing I'm really trying to do that's dear to my heart is obviously get to a point where 70 to 80% of raw Africa, our clothing, is made in Africa, because that's part of the story, right? It's coming from the
yeah,
motherland. It's a brand coming from the motherland. So part of that story has to be, we have to create jobs. We have to create manufacturing that's done, in the motherland as well. Logistically, what makes sense right now is obviously Ghana. We do make some stuff in Ghana, but because they have a port, there's just makes it more easier. I would love to make more things in Zimbabwe, but it's like Zimbabwe being landlocked is
yeah,
just tough to get things out of there, and logistically
yeah,
it's tough. And then Ghana, because I obviously went to high school there, they have a port, they have some connections, it just makes it easier for me. That's the second thing we're trying to do, is definitely create jobs, make as much through Africa as
yeah,
possible. And then the third thing I'm really that I'm trying to do as a brand, or even just what inspires me as a person, is to change the narrative of Africa and change the narrative of just fashion. I mean, we are so um, brainwashed to think it's all about Eurocentric fashion and beauty standards. That's one thing I am, as a brand, we're trying to educate people to say, no, that's not the way to go. Be proud of who you are, be proud of where you're coming from. And we try to educate people through, whether it's our blogs or through just, videos that we do or through our brand ambassadors. So that's the third thing we're trying to do. And then the fourth thing that I'm hoping to do, as we get bigger, is really build Rua Frequent athletes, right? So these are brand
Ah,
ambassadors,
sure.
because we focus on fitness and athleisure. So to get to a level where it's like, if you look at Gymshark, Lululemon, all these other brands,
Yeah,
they have brand ambassadors or they have athletes. So that's where we're trying to get to. It's like have people that really represent the brand, that love the brand so much that they're always willing to wear it and showcase it. Because, one thing is like, it's all about word of mouth too. It's like, yeah, now you can run social media ads and all that stuff, but it's not the same as seeing
true,
somebody in your
true.
clothing and seeing somebody that you look after, or somebody, I
Up
mean,
to,
you
yeah,
look, and you follow on social media wearing it. So that's,
yeah,
yeah, that's another thing we're trying to do. And then the fifth thing that I'm trying to do is also, which will probably be the last thing, is really get to a point where all these African soccer teams,
yeah.
they're wearing all these other brands. It might not be Rua Frequent, but I want them to have that idea that you're an African soccer team or you're an
A
African
soccer
team,
team
whether it's
or
soccer,
netball,
netball,
yeah,
whatever, yeah, whatever it is. If you're gonna go out there to the World Cup or to the Olympics, you need to be wearing something that represents you, right? Whether it's a brand that's coming out of South Africa, or whether it's Rua Africa, whether it's just a local
yeah,
brand. I don't even care. That's one thing that I am like, I want to put out there in that space so people know
yeah,
that, I'm not just about, I want Rua Africa to be, the brand for Zimbabwe or for South Africa, but I want South African teams to be wearing, again, a brand that represents
yeah.
them, whether it's a local South African brand or
Whether
whatever.
it's
That
South
that's
Africa,
another thing I'm passionate
yeah.
about. I'm trying to drive that idea out
Cool,
there.
man. I
So
like that. I like that. I like those. Those are very ambitious, goals that you have for the brand.
yeah,
So you are in the biggest mall in the U.S. Do we get a mall soon? Maybe
yeah.
in one of the biggest malls in Africa as well. Maybe somewhere in Joburg, Durban, I don't know, Cape Town. Do we have something in Ghana, or
Yeah.
how do we get hold of the merchandise when we are in Africa, or is it just
You get it.
Amazon?
Yeah. Wait.
How do we get the brands?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, yeah, for the most part, everybody else, if you're not in Minnesota, obviously, if you cannot come to the retail space, it's all e-commerce, right? You can buy it online. But one thing that we are always evaluating is like, do we get into other stores, right? I think that is a strategy that works, at least for me, for Africa right now, in the short term, is getting into other stores that are already out there. Because for us to have our own store, in the short, especially in the short term, is just not realistic. It really requires a lot of time, and it also requires a lot of trust. But the short term strategy is definitely getting into other stores. So whether it's in Ghana or South Africa, if there's already an existing store that wants to carry raw frequent, that's something that we are willing to do, and we're working on, is getting into those stores,
yeah,
as opposed to us opening our own store. Maybe long term we might start, we might open our own stores, but I think the short term strategy, which I think is the quickest way to get people to wear raw frequent, or for people that actually want to buy raw frequent but they cannot get online, is really to get it in the stores locally.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of business sense. Um, I should have asked you earlier, actually. I mean, you were studying, you done, you doing your MBAs, you got a job, you were getting paid. You're saying you waited because you had this idea since you were in high school. So what kept it
Yeah.
alive? One, right? Two, when exactly did you
Mhm.
start, selling making a
Yeah.
product and selling it? And then the third step, when
Yeah.
did you say, because you left your job last year, you say? or you say, yeah,
Yeah,
full
yeah.
time, that okay, now
Mhm.
I'm gonna focus full time just
Full time.
on,
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
business, Rue Africa, Africa Wear. That's just gonna be my focus from
Mhm.
here going on. That just take us through those, three phases. How did that work out?
Yeah. So right after my MBA, I guess yeah, this would be another person that, again, not a role model, but the person that impacted my life at that time as well. This would be my previous CFO. So this was a person. This was a lady that was a CFO at the time. Really, I had an informational interview. So this is like not even a job interview; it's just an informational interview where it's like, we just want to get to know candidates out there. We want to see what's out there in terms of candidates. So this is right after my MBA. So I meet with this lady. Um, she just believed in me, and was willing to give me a chance. The thing what people don't know about, when you come to the US, you come in as an international student, so you have on this student visa, right? And usually it's like you have 1 year after that to sort of like work, and then you have to figure out what to do. It's either you have to figure out, do you go do your master's, or do you go do your PhD, or do you go back? But you really have, for the most part, 1 year. I mean, if you're in STEM, so if you're doing science and computer science, now you get almost 3 years. But for me, because I did economics and business and I had my MBA, it was just for 1 year. So when I met the CFO through the informational interview, she really believed in me, and she's like, yeah, we gotta hire you. I mean, at the time there was not, it's like I'm not even at an interview. There's no
But
job
but
out
what
there.
did you
So they
say? What
just like,
happened?
no, we have
What
to
what
hire.
made what made her believe in you? Like,
Yeah.
what was it? Did you have some Africa, Rue Afrique way? Did you smell some sort of way? Did you have a nice suit on?
No, no, no. I think
What
it's,
was up?
yeah,
Why did she
yeah,
believe
no,
in
I
you?
think it's, I think it's one of those, like, I mean, sometimes you meet people and they can sense your drive. They can sense the kind of person that you're gonna be in terms of like your work ethics. And sometimes yeah. So I felt like, yeah, that's probably what she sensed. The sense, yeah, I had great work ethics, and I was a driven person. So yeah, she just believed in
And I
me.
don't I don't
They
want to
offered
let
me a
you I don't
job.
want to let you go with that response. How did she
Yeah.
sense your work ethic? I mean, come on, give us more. What
Yeah.
happened? What happened? Like, how would she sense that? How
No,
did she
I
know?
think
Was it something in your
no, because
CV,
well, I think I
in your
mean,
resume? That's what it's called.
No, not at all. Because I was like straight out of like school, right? I didn't have a whole lot of work experience. Not a whole, like, I mean, obviously, like my CV would show that I was a good student, right? I think at the time, so right after my MBA, I probably had like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the GPA system, how it works, like a 3.9 GPA system out of 4.0. So that's a really good GPA,
3.9.
especially for
That's like a totalness.
yeah.
So you knew everything.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I didn't know everything, but I tried. I tried my best. So I think I don't know. I don't know what it is. I guess I cannot speak for her in terms of like how, what she saw in me and what made her believe. But I do believe it definitely has something to do with just knowing that, okay, this guy is from Zimbabwe. He's made it this
Yeah,
far,
yeah,
and he has awesome CV in terms of his academics. Um, there has to be something there. So yeah, yeah. So I don't want to speak for her
yeah.
in terms of what
No,
else she saw, but
I get you.
that's what I.
I think
Yeah,
the GPA, now we know you are bright, very bright. You are a bright
yeah.
spark. So if you got a
Relative. It's all relative.
3.9 out of a 4, man, that's
Yeah,
huge. So
yeah,
okay, then she sees, obviously, I mean, to perform at that level. Yes, there's a level of
yeah,
intelligence, of course, but there's also an element of, like you're saying, your work
yeah,
ethic and being
yeah,
through, the life that you've been through. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
yeah.
So she gives you guys talk, she gives you a
Yeah.
job, and then yeah,
Yep. So yep, they give me a job, and with that it comes with so now I transition from having this student visa to like a work
cool.
visa, right? So that just gives me more time in the
Yeah,
US. So and then once you're in this work visa, the funny thing about the US is like you can start any company that you want. But the thing is, you cannot get paid from it because you're technically supposed to be just getting paid from your work visa job, not any other
Okay.
job. So so that that also delayed the process to start Rua Africa again, because I already had this idea. I'm like ready to do it, but it's like, well, legally it does not make sense to do it right now. So it took maybe about 3 4 years. And they did my permanent residence. So once you become a permanent resident, then you can actually do whatever you
Cool.
want
Yeah.
for the most part. So that's when I started, that's when I launched Rua Africa. So this was in late 2015 is when Rua Africa actually went
Yeah.
live.
Why,
So
why, why did
that's
you
when we
do it, man? Now
started.
you got a
So
four. Sorry to cut you there. You have a 3.9. You know what I
yeah,
mean, and you got a job. You're doing well. Why
yeah,
don't you just aim to work for the Goldman
yeah.
Sachs and this other big corporates, or go into Silicon Valley? Like, why are you keeping
Yeah,
this
yeah,
vision or dream that you
yeah,
had when you were in Ghana high school? Why did you keep it alive,
yeah.
and why did you try it out? Like, why didn't you just let it go and
Like,
chase the millions in the big corporates of the US?
yeah, no, it's because I mean, I always believed in, I mean, the kind of person I am, I always believed that I wasn't going to be somebody that works for the rest of my life, right? Like I do enjoy traveling, I do enjoy other things. So that's one thing I knew. I was like, I'm not gonna be like working for somebody for the rest of my life. And then the other thing is like I really believed in the brand, really believed in like changing the narrative, because again there was a big, this was a big pain point and demand. Like there wasn't anything out there that's like everyday functional wear, at least in the US, in the market. So this is something I believe it was going to work. And I believe there was a market for it, there was a demand for it. um, so I think that's why I kept it alive. Yeah, I mean, those two things is what kept it alive. Like not wanting to work for somebody for the rest of my life, and two is like, yeah, there's definitely demand. This is a feasible
Yeah.
idea.
So I mean, you believe in that at that point. I think that's interesting because at that point you don't have any product, you haven't sold, you haven't done anything, and you're talking about a pain point. And then you
Yeah,
you
yeah,
keep bringing
mhm,
this up.
yeah,
So did you like talk to
mhm,
people? Did you show them
yeah,
did you draw, design something, say, hey guys, would you buy this? Or do you just like, okay, listen, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, I believe this, I think there's a market for it, it's gonna work. Let me just do it. How,
yeah.
how did it work?
Yeah. Yeah. So how it worked is that's where like doing my research, I came up and I found, oh, there's this company, it does print on demand. So basically what that means is like if you place an order, that's when they make something, right? So there's no risk in having to like do inventory. So what that did for me was like, oh, I can actually test out ideas. I can design a sports bra, I can design leggings and test that out and see if people are going to buy it or what are they willing to buy. So that's one thing, so that's when I started testing ideas in terms, or even hats. It's like, oh, I can design a hat and test out and see, are people actually going to buy it as well. So, you know, once tested a few ideas through that, that's when I realized, okay, this is working. I need to actually go into mass production, right? And I'm still working, obviously. So, because my day job is funding the business, obviously. So I'm still working. So so I'm funding. Okay, these are the ideas that are working. These are the sports bras that are actually selling. This is what I need to mass produce and try to sell. Because obviously, with the print on demand, how it works is like it's great for testing, but it's not great for your margins, right? Because it costs a lot more to just make one thing as opposed to like making hundreds of the same thing. Yeah, but it was great for testing and then moving from testing to actually mass producing certain things. So even up to now, we still do a little bit of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting, man. That's smart, smart. So now, I mean, my that was the second phase. So the third phase is like, yeah, now this is 2016,
Yeah.
17, I presume, because you started in 2015, right? So now, come 2021, what makes you
Yeah. Yeah.
decide, okay, yeah, now it's the time for me to like resign, focusing on this thing full time?
To
Yeah.
to go. Mhm. Yeah, so 2021, the one thing was because I was gonna hit 10 years from working in healthcare finance, right? And again, if you go back to that CFO, I felt like I kind of owed her my life, and I think 10 years was a good number. It's like I owe you 10 years because you gave me a great opportunity, a great opportunity for me to to fund my lifestyle, to fund even like my business now. Because again, like I said, I in those 10 years, I was traveling. My wife, my kids, we were traveling all over, or even just the ability to have a family was all
From the
from
job.
having that job. So she definitely like made an impact in my life and gave me that opportunity. Now even the idea that, oh, I can fund my business through my work and all that stuff. Yeah, so yeah, that's October 2021 is when I hit 10 years there. So I was like, exactly on the day I hit 10 years, that's it, I'm done. Um, I'm not gonna be working anymore. Um, and yeah, that's when I started. Yeah, I'm gonna be full time through Afriquare. And then before that, so this was in October. So June of 2021 is also when I'd already opened the retail store, the Mall of
Yeah.
America. So it got to a point where I felt like I cannot keep running the brand as a side hustle, right? Because the one thing I believe is like outputs are always gonna come depending on
Input.
your
Yeah.
inputs, right? So I felt like I was not putting enough into the brand for to get a big output
Sure.
out of it, right? So as this, running it as a side hustle, working, a 9 to 5, and trying to just here's a business that's out there in the e-commerce space. So I feel like I really need to get to that level where it's like I can concentrate on the brand because it's getting bigger, but it can only get bigger if I put in more time. So yeah, June 2021, we opened the retail space, started hiring employees to run that store, and then October 2021, I stopped working, and then again, the retail space is still going on. Obviously, the pandemic is
Yeah.
is affecting the
I
foot
was about to
traffic and
say, man,
everything else.
the pandemic is there. That's the
Yeah,
time. That's the year you decide to say, okay, you know what,
yeah,
I'm leaving. Business was
yeah.
still booming
But
during the
yeah, but it's
pandemic.
all about. Yeah, but that's also that's a great point that you say that, because the pandemic made the opportunity available to me as well. Because what's happening in the pandemic is like, oh, all these other stores are struggling and closing, right? So the malls are empty,
Uh,
right? So the malls also need new space. So what that means is like, well, I can get in and have cheaper rent in the mall because they want stores in, because everybody else
it's
is trying to
yeah,
get out,
yeah,
right? And then the way I see it too is like it's a long term strategy. I'm not opening this because I know the pandemic is happening. I'm thinking forward and say, well, the pandemic is going to stop at
yeah,
some point, and then now I have a retail space, and then once the pandemic stops, everybody's just gonna know through Afriquare because we are in this biggest mall in the U.S. Right? So I'm not thinking right now. I'm thinking forward, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to open the store there. It's like I gotta think ahead, and that's why.
yeah, man.
So
That's super. Yeah,
so yeah, yeah. Sometimes a crisis creates an
for
opportunity, and
sure,
that's exactly what happened.
for sure.
Yeah.
You know, in everyone's success, there's always an element, we could call it luck, something that you didn't create, but, it
Yeah.
worked in your favor, definitely.
Yeah. Hmm.
I would want
Yeah.
to, because I'm also interested in the business, and analytics. How do you make that decision to
Yeah.
say, I don't know how much you're getting paid, but, maybe, you know, um,
Yeah.
uh, you're getting paid what, 10,000 US dollars a month, maybe for your job. I don't know if that's a lot in the US,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
something like that. And then where you're getting the same
Yeah.
from your business to decide, okay, my business can actually pay me this much. So it's okay for me to quit my job. I can still
Hmm.
cover, my lifestyle. My kids can live the same way. My wife won't, be like, hey, look, you
Yeah.
left your job,
Yeah.
now we have less, now we can't go on
Yeah.
holiday in Africa, we can't one two three four. So
We can.
how
Yeah.
did you, like, what I mean, how did you decide on a more practical, in a business analysis,
Hmm.
with a business analysis lens, how did you make that decision?
Yeah. That's a great question, and to be honest with you, that's probably one of the reasons why people never start anything, right? Because a job creates this safety net for you. It's like, yeah, every 2 weeks or every month, I have this paycheck that's going to come in. Why would I leave that and do something else? Because I have this safety net. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, again, because I mean, I was getting paid really, really well, and I actually loved what I was doing too. I loved my job, but the thing is, if we go back to those 2 points, I always knew I'm not gonna work for everybody the rest of my, and then I believed in the brand. So obviously my savings, what I was making from that, I calculated out and say, okay, I might not make the same amount of money maybe in the first few months, or maybe in the first year, compared to what I'm making at my job, but come 2, 3, 4 years from now, I will be making more than that. So that's, sort of a projection and a calculation, obviously with a lot of assumptions that you have to make. And with the assumption that also the pandemic is going to end soon, so, but it's really, sometimes it's about just taking a leap of faith, and wanting to, and being willing to let go of this safety net, which is called a paycheck or job. And if you believe in your brand, if you're willing to work on it, or any business really, it's gonna. With that said, sometimes belief is not good enough, right? You definitely have to look at the numbers, because yeah, just because I believe it's sunny outside and it's I can wear shorts. No, my belief is not good enough because it's actually snowing here in Minnesota, right? Just because I believe it, sometimes,
So,
yeah,
so, so
reality
which numbers
shifts.
did you look
But
at?
yeah,
Because you're talking about projections. So maybe for other people out there, trying to
yeah.
take that leap
So
of
I mean,
faith, leave
mhm,
their job, maybe they've started something. Even me,
yeah,
you know what I mean. What numbers should I be
yeah,
looking at if I'm
mhm,
like, okay, now let me put in that resignation letter and do this 100%. So what are the maybe top
yeah.
three things that you should be, looking at? What did you look at?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, so I think for me too, I guess this is probably where my wife comes in, because even though I talked about safety net for my job, then so now she's sort of the safety net for our family too,
Yeah,
right? If everything does not go as well as planned with the business, because she has a full-time job that pays her great, and so for you, anybody really, you should be looking into say, if you have a house or if you have a mortgage, it's like, okay, can I afford that mortgage? If you have kids and they have tuition and school fees, can I afford that as well? And then the thing with businesses too, businesses grow based on either equity or debt, right? So you have to be able to say, how can I leverage what I have as a business? Because now we've been in business for what, more than 5
yeah,
years. So we're at a point where we can actually leverage other people's money, right, to make
cool,
money,
yeah,
right? So so I had to move away from this idea that it has to be my savings. It had to
yeah.
be just my money I'm putting into the business. Now I'm actually,
Taking
leveraging,
taking out
whether
business
it's
loans, yeah.
loans or other. Yeah, so as you're, as people are starting out businesses, look to see what opportunities in terms of how can I use other people. As long as you can use other people's money to make money and be able to obviously to pay back to them, because you've made money. That's a great way to look at it. And I know it's that opportunity exists depending on where you are. If you're in Zimbabwe, you're in South Africa, that opportunity might not be always there for you. But here in the US, at least where I am, especially right now, based on what's just happening in the US, there's a big love affair with black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, because they've now realized there wasn't a lot of diversity and inclusion in those
Yeah.
opportunities historically. So everybody's trying to fast track that. So yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's a long-winded question to, I mean,
Answer,
answer to your
yeah.
question,
No, but
but
I get you. I get you.
yeah, it's really, yeah, I think that's definitely my, obviously my wife is definitely playing a big role in being the safety
Yeah.
net for our family, but also it's like, knowing that, okay, I had savings, and knowing that, okay, this is how much I need to make for the business to go forward. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, cool, man. I get that response. Well said. Long-winded or not,
Yeah.
but that safety net, like you're saying, it's important.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
would go further and say, so how do you sell this idea now to your wife? Because basically like you saying, she's the safety net. So how did you sell it, and how did she receive it? How did
Yeah.
you make sure that you convince her that, okay, listen, partner for life, this makes sense
Mhm.
because one, two, three, four,
Yeah.
and did how
Yeah.
did that work out, between the two of you? Or
Yeah,
you still
I think
fighting about it
it's
now?
all about having. No, 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 no. I think it's all about having. I mean, if you have a partner, you have a wife, or it's all about having somebody that believes in you too, right? So obviously, if she did not believe in me, she's not gonna be like, "Don't quit your job." So because this is not even just even your friends, right? Your friends, everybody's gonna discourage you not to quit your job because they are sort of like projecting their fears on you, and but at the end of the day, like it all comes down to you and what you really believe. But at the same time, you can't be selfish to say, especially if you have kids too. You can't just be selfish and say, "Nah, I'm just gonna quit." You definitely have to have a plan. I think part of our plan is we're together. We're gonna have a plan together. Um, so yeah, I think she definitely believes in the brand. I mean, she sees what we're doing, and she sees that this is something that's going to work out based on whether with the numbers from the retail store or the e-commerce store and where we are trying to get to. So yeah.
So you're doing very well, man, and I'm very inspired, man, and proud, and I think I can keep you for another hour, and as you can see, I can ask you very
Yeah.
specific, questions about why you do certain things or decisions
Yeah.
that you took, but I don't want to keep you too long,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your time, and I'm sure that people who are gonna hear this story, are gonna be inspired. And I can't wait, man, to own one of these products. I'm gonna go on Amazon because, we don't have a store yet in SA, so it's cool. I'm gonna go on Amazon and get myself, one of your products. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel the vision, and I
Yeah.
wish you all the best, man, to
Yeah. No,
take
it's
over.
gonna
Yeah,
happen.
definitely. I like those 5 points that you spoke about, and I'll keep following you,
Yeah.
and checking in on how that is going. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, no, thank you. No, no, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, again, it's great to actually talk about it, and hopefully, if somebody can get inspired about it, and it's great to be open and honest about my journey. And yeah, I actually look forward to following you and look forward to like listening to other guests that you have on the show too. So
Thank you, brother.